Evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the meeting of the Beaufort County School Board of Education Academics Committee meeting on March 27th, 2024 at 5:09. At the District Educational Services Center, Conference Room E, remote hybrid conferencing meeting. This meeting will be live streamed on the school board's YouTube channel. Requests for public comments participation will be accepted between 3 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. by sending an email with your name, phone number, and topic to robin.cushenberry@beaufort.k12.sc.us. You will receive a phone call during the public comments, where you will be able to speak and address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the committee's domain. The forum will be limited to 15 minutes. Mission of the Beaufort County School District through a personalized learning approach will prepare graduates who compete and succeed in an ever-changing global society and career marketing. The agenda for today. Call to order. Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May be seated. We need approval of the agenda. Mr. Smith?
I did have a question about the agenda. I was just wondering, did we intend to get through all of this today?
We do, as much as time will allow.
Okay.
So we'll get through as much as time will allow.
Okay, so,
Good question.
make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I second that motion. So it's been approved by Mr. Will Smith and seconded by Chloe Jordan. Ms. Cushenberry, do we have
All in
any
favor?
other comments?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
Unanimous.
No public comments.
Okay. Okay, we need approval of the January 31st, 2024 committee meeting minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the January 31st, 2024 committee meetings, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I second that motion. So it has been. Any comments? Yes, I approve that approval. And there are comments.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye. Aye, so it's been approved unanimously, and you just take the message. I see Dr. Stratus up there. Sorry, I don't have my eyeglasses on, so I'm kind of at a disadvantage.
You have Dr. Stratus on, and board members, you have Elizabeth Kay, Earl Campbell, and Dr. Watts.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
And Jillian Rowland is on there as staff member, and Julia White is on as staff member.
Okay, I see. Thank you. All right, we have administrative regulation updates. IS 17, health education, SS 16, discipline of student with disabilities, SS 39, suspension, expulsions, and alternative program assignments for students, and SS40, reentry or entry procedures for students with disciplinary issues. Dr. Stratus?
Thank you, Ms. Gordon, and good afternoon, everyone. I do want to take an opportunity to introduce those from ISD and Student Services who are joining us. We have Karen Gilbert, Director for Career Technical Education, Melissa Vogt, Coordinator for Physical Education and Health, Melissa Murray, Director for Literacy K-12, Karen McKinsey, Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and Dr. White, our Officer for Student Services. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Vogt. She will be managing this first part on the administrative regulation on health, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Stratus, it's okay. I'll go ahead with this part, if that's all right with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. McKinsey. Thank you.
Absolutely. IS 17 is the administrative regulation for health education. And as you know, Instructional Service Division regularly reviews and updates the Beaufort County District Administrative Regulations. We feel like this is an important process. It's a very systematic focus to ensure that we have the policies and the laws and the regulations of the state within our ARs for our schools. IS 17 establishes our superintendent's expectations of the basic structure for a health education instruction within Beaufort County School District. The regulation also ensures a sound and comprehensive health education program as an integral part of a general education for all students. This regulation ensures that Beaufort County School District feels its responsibility for meeting the health needs of all children and youth through a comprehensive program, and that is kindergarten through 12th grade in Beaufort County. And I did do an executive summary to make it a little bit easier, but you also have the red line version, so whatever is easiest for you to look at, I'll just walk you through the revisions that were made. And I will start out by saying most of the revisions are made based on policies and procedures that the state has put in place that we wanted to make sure we added. In section 2, we added the non-discrimination clause. We have been adding the non-discrimination clause to all of our administrative regulations. That is really to ensure that we are providing equal opportunity to all students that we serve. In section 3, we have moved subsection D, which revolves around pregnancy prevention. We have moved that to section 6 based on some regulations that came out from the state. It's just a better fit there. In section 4, we had 2 changes, one in subsection B and one in subsection C. And those involve South Carolina's requirements to add 75 minutes of health instruction over a 36-week period or 45 total hours per year. It also adds the state required health nutrition component. Those are actually exciting changes there. In section 5, we have 3 subsections that have been updated, and those are B, C, and D. This adds the South Carolina's requirement for students in grades 6, 7, and 8. So that's our middle grades kids. Students in grade 6 are going to receive an equivalent of 45 hours per year. Students in grade 7 will receive 37.5 hours per year. And our students in 8th grade will be taught separately based on gender. So male and female students will be taught separately. You look at subsection 6, section 6, subsection B, I apologize, paragraphs 1 through 5. We also have some additions there. The addition in this section really refers to that state requirement and guideline for reproductive health, family life, pregnancy prevention instruction. And as you can see on page 3 of that red line version, it's a good bit that the state has outlined that we are now required to do. So we felt it extremely important to get that into our administrative regulations, so our schools will be aware of that requirement from the state. Our next, and getting close to the end on this one, is section 11, subsection A and B.
Actually, just the red section that we're going over.
Yes, sir. Those are the additions typically or changes.
Right. Maybe if we can hit a little bit on what we're going over, because we're kind of moving kind of fast, just so that they can know if someone's.
Do you want me to go back to the beginning, or are you more interested in this family life education?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. This family life education is instruction that the state is now holding all school districts and schools accountable for. So for those of you, I apologize, I was moving a little bit quick, but on page 3 of your red line version, that's section 4, family life education. This requires us to provide instruction in each one of these aspects for our students. They need to be able to develop an understanding of their physical, mental, emotional, social, economic, psychological aspects of close personal relationships. And they need to have a cultural foundation of human development. So what is human development for us as a peoples? If you look at B, that provides instruction to support the development of responsible personal values and behaviors. And this again goes back to that state regulation. It aids in establishing a really strong family life for themselves in the future. And it really emphasizes the responsibility of marriage within the state guidelines. C provides instruction as to the laws of the state, and that relates to sexual conduct of minors, including criminal sexual conduct. And again, all of those are under the Family Life Education Act or a requirement of the state. Number 5 there, I think, which is another one that you probably want to hear a little bit more about, Mr. Smith, and that's pregnancy prevention. And that requires us now as a district and as our individual schools to stress the importance of abstaining from sexual activity until marriage. It also helps students to kind of develop those skills that enable them to assist their friends with peer pressure in order to abstain from sexual activity. The last component of that portion of the state regulation talks about methods of contraception and the risk and the benefits of each of those methods that the students will learn. There's a good bit in there, you are correct. The state passed quite a bit on us. And that is truly why we wanted to have our due diligence. And I know, you know, this one has not been so long without being updated, and here we are bringing it back to you. But you know, as a department, we really feel like we have to be strategic and make sure that we provide those things to our schools as soon as the laws are passed by our legislature. And that brings us to, if you look on page 4 at number 11, that is Gavin's law. And that is a South Carolina code law as well. And this one is a little more timely, I think, because it's about sexual extortion. It's about blackmailing someone based on sexually explicit image or video. Those kind of things. It is a felony offense in the state of South Carolina, could be deemed as an aggravated felony if that victim is a minor student. So students have to be aware of that. Or if they're vulnerable adults, so we're thinking about some of our students who may not have the capacity to understand that is their right. And also if the victim suffers any bodily harm or injury or death related to that. The state also put in accordance with Gavin's law, they asked for provisions for providing age appropriate instruction and the dangers and the consequences of sexual extortion. But rather than blanketing that as a state, this is what you will teach. They give that preview to the district to say, this is what's age appropriate for that child to be learning within the subset of the law. Beaufort County will also incorporate requirements of Gavin's Law into the Aaron's Law existing curriculum that we have, and provide age-appropriate instruction to students on the dangers and consequences of sexual extortion and aggregated sexual extortion. Additionally, notification shall be provided to our parents and their legal guardians, the public, and to school personnel to guard that law. That's an important piece of that. And then that last little subsection B there talks about any student who engages in sexual extortion will be subject to disciplinary actions consistent with the Beaufort County Student Code of Conduct. And that school administrators need to notify law enforcement immediately of any allegations of such conduct, because that is required by state law. It's pretty hefty one.
It is.
And then that last part down there, I think you guys probably are familiar with this one, but on subset 13 down there talks about that local advisory committee, which I know y'all have been working diligently on, and just the components around that. We need 2 parents, we need 3 clergy members, we need 2 health professionals, 2 teachers, 2 students, and 2 other people that are not employed by the district. And I think that's something that we should be able to finalize. So there's a lot to this. The state has added a lot of layers of law around this subject for us, but we felt as a district that it was important that we get it into our administrative regulation and that we make our community and our schools aware.
I do have some questions about this, I'm sure. In reference to even the family education, how are we getting legal involved in this? Because this is a lot of stuff and it's a lot of changes for the district. And I believe this could bring a lot of litigation to the district if we're not careful in how we make sure that we're educating our staff and students on these laws. So this is a lot, and this is a lot. It's not just talking about at the state level, but in the district level, for every district, I believe this is new law that's going to be serious. And so my question is, how much is legal been involved in terms of creating this form, and also in terms of educating, because it's our job to always educate as well. So what does that look like?
That is a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked it, because I actually met tirelessly with Ms. Cartledge and Ms. Rowland on this. Mrs. Cartledge put a lot of energy into making sure that we adhered specifically to the tenements of the South Carolina law. The other thing that we're doing currently is looking to the state to use state materials for this instruction. So that's something else we'll be doing, but all of that will be vetted in conjunction with Dr. Stratus and with Ms. Cartledge, our legal advisor. There's a lot to it. Yes, sir.
It is, and I'm just and so even though this law's been passed, so once we are y'all asking for anything? Are y'all asking for anything about? And is this IS 17?
Yes, sir.
So y'all asking the board to pass this today? I mean, to recommend this to the board of the
And typically what we do with administrative regulations is
It's just
they don't have to be approved,
Okay.
but we don't want to do this without your knowledge of it. As board members, you need to, have knowledge of these things that we do as far as our administrative regulations. So we want to bring it forward for that reason.
Right.
Mhm. Any other question?
No, she pretty much has I had that same question about some of the other stuff, because like I said, this is weighted a lot heavier. I mean, even again the Galvin's law. I mean, it's a lot. I'm hoping that our staff, that our staff and our administration. I mean, our administrators and our staff are aware of these laws, because this is stuff that could trip you up.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. If there are no more questions or comments on this piece.
Mary had her hand up. Mary, Dr. Stratus has her hand up.
Wait, let me see. Okay,
Thank you, Ms.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. So not only has this gone deeply with legal, it then goes to senior staff, and you'll hear of that process for all the ARs. Actually go back to senior staff before they come to committee. So I want to share that as well. And then once we go to the board, with updating the board, then the information is always brought to our principals at the following principal meeting so that we keep everybody abreast of changes that are within the district, especially when anything's tied to legal.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus. You can only see one else. So can we go on now with discipline of students with disabilities? Are we ready for that one?
Okay.
White, Dr. White's on screen.
Dr. White?
Yes. Yes. Good evening. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good. And my voice hopefully would hold up. So today I bring forth to you 3 different student services ARs, 2 with some revisions, and 1 is a brand new AR that did not exist. As Dr. Stratos and Ms. McKenzie stated, we work really closely with legal on updating our ARs. And more specifically with these 3 ARs, we had a collaborative effort across ISD, Right Choices, and the individuals who handle discipline hearings to make sure that our language was the same across ARs, because some of them cross over, as you would see. As the previous ARs, we all updated the purpose and the non-discrimination statements be consistent across all of the district ARs. So you will see that with all of the ARs. Specifically speaking to SS16, discipline of students with disabilities, we also specify documentation is to be provided to parents, which includes the Beaufort County Special Education Parental Handbook Procedural Safeguards Notice. And that's important that every time a person is removed for more than 10 days and is subject to disciplinary removals of 10 days or expulsion, that we provide that notice at the same time we do the infraction notice as well. We also updated to include examples of what we meant by special education and related services to be provided to suspended students. So for example, we still have to do specialized instruction. If they have speech therapy, occupational therapy, orientation, mobility, all of those related services still have to be provided. So to be very clear on that. A change of placement, when a decision made, school must notify the parent and legal guardian, and again, provide the procedural safeguard notice as well. We did update our definition of illegal drugs as defined by IDA in the Special Education Process Guide by the state of South Carolina. And it's important to note here that that definition does not include tobacco or alcohol. When it comes to affording the students due process, just a consistency of the language in the department that is now handling this, so it goes through the student services officer instead of the chief instructional services officer.
Where are you at? Where are you at? Could you tell us where you at? You moving kind of quick there.
Moving kind of fast. So
Yeah,
what I do you have the summary document?
Yes.
Yes, I'm going from the summary document, just highlighting those areas that we changed. A lot of it is just language or clearing up the language.
Are you on page 3?
I am on page 1 of, Robin, do you have that summary document I sent you? Did you place that in? Or if I can,
I don't have the summary.
you don't have the summary?
Yeah, I was working from the red lines and,
Okay, I can go with the red line. Just keep scrolling
Yeah.
your red line.
Okay.
Okay. So there is, now moving to functional behavior assessment. We go back a little bit further.
Would you
Right
like
here.
questions after or during?
Let us catch up to where she
After.
is.
All right. I was talking about educational services, and that right there, go back to the red line. Thank you, right there. When it comes to a student who has been removed and suspended, it is important to know that a student with disability must still continue to have services, and they must be able to participate in the general education curriculum, although it may be in another setting, whether that's at home or Right Choices program or a therapeutic facility as well. And those services can only be determined by the IEP team or the Section 504 team. So even though the hearing officer may say they need to be removed, under IDEA, only the IEP team or the 504 team can determine at what specific services they need and if those services can be provided in the settings that they're being removed to as well. You can move forward. Here we just changed the language to read a little bit easier to say the IEP and 504 team must conduct a functional behavior assessment. And it's important that when kids are removed for more than 10 days, that we really try to address the behavior that got them to be removed from the school environment in the first place. So we start with doing a functional behavior assessment. Once that's done, the school must convene the IEP team to develop an assessment plan and also what interventions may proceed, may follow that as well. Another change was we added that when it comes to the effect of the change of placement, the date that the decision is made to remove that is considered a change of placement for a student with a disability. And here's when we have to notify the parent again of their rights and provide them with a copy of the South Carolina Parent Procedural Safeguards Notice. We just added, clear the language up here to say parent or legal guardian as well, to be consistent across our ARs and is defined by IDEA. Again, the services that a student is to receive can only be determined by the IEP and 504 team. We really wanted to make that clear so we could be consistent with IDEA and not inadvertently violate what the law says when it comes to providing services for a student with disabilities. These other changes were just a matter of cleaning up the language to make it clearer for the reader. Same thing, parent and legal guardian, and you notice we have to provide that procedural safeguards notice.
Right, but you're moving extremely fast for me, to be honest with you.
Dr. White, Mr.
Yeah.
Smith has a statement for you. Hold on
Sure.
a second.
I asked, so in your presentation, the way you're doing this, it's a little confusing for me. And particularly when you go over the red, if you would go over what has been changed and what has been there before, or basically read first and then go over what you're saying, I think that would be more clear. But for me right now, it doesn't appear that way. And if it is, and I do apologize, but I'm not sure if the pace that you're moving, I'm not understanding. I'm trying to catch up. But right now, if you could give, you're talking over our head with the terminologies. If you use the terminologies that are on here, that would maybe possibly make it better too as well.
Or I continue to use the same language. So on the screen, you're seeing parent participation. We just added and make it clear that it's parent or legal guardian. And then we just added that they must be provided with a copy of the Special Education Parent Handbook Procedural Safeguards Notice. That is the language that is used on the notice.
Thank you.
On the weapons and drug offenses, again, this is where we clean up the definition of illegal drugs as outlined by IDEA, and the definition does not include tobacco or alcohol. In here, we also added that the principal may also recommend the student to be placed in an interim alternative educational setting, and that setting must be determined by the IEP team. So we just spelled out what IAES meant. We didn't have that spelled out before. On the functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plans, or FBA and BIP, we added language that before that pretty much says the IEP and 504 team has not conducted a functional behavior assessment and implemented a behavior intervention plan for the student before the student engaged in the behavior that resulted in the proposed disciplinary action. So we just made that clear that they then have to do that. So we just added some language to make that statement a lot clearer to for those to follow. In this section, we just changed from Chief Instructional Officer to Student Services Officer to go along with what our organizational chart says that has oversight of this AR. In this subsection you're seeing, when we talk about the assignment to an alternative program, we struck through and deleted the student discipline hearing officer must determine the special education placement. That is right contrary to what the law says, but it is the IEP team that must determine the appropriate educational services to be provided to the student. And we wanted to take out discipline hearing officer so people don't get confused as to who makes that decision. The decisions lie solely with the IEP and the 504 team. If the behavior in question is a manifestation of the disability, it is important to understand that the student may not be disciplined, and we added shall be returned to the placement from which the student was removed. It's very clear in the law that if is a manifestation of the disability that caused the behavior or contributed behavior, we cannot discipline them and we have to return them to the environment from which they came from. Excuse me. Interim alternative educational setting. Again, although the principal can make that unilateral decision, and that is if it's for drugs or weapons or serious bodily harm, they can assign a student to interim alternative education setting, but the IEP team has to determine what the services are going to be provided to the student and where they will be provided while the person is assigned to the IAES, or interim alternative education setting. Continue with a free appropriate public education. We just wanted folks to understand that under IDEA, and not Beaufort County School District, but under IDEA, that we must continue to provide a free appropriate public education, which includes special education and related services to those students who have been removed, even if in an alternative educational setting, and that includes expulsion. And that was it for SS16. We also add the board governance in there as well, and all applicable laws. Any questions?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of these right here, I know this is basically this is the SS 16, but for the district, don't we have this align with a policy? You know which one that is? Like we have ARs, but we don't have ARs, but we have
That's right.
Yeah.
Those are the policies.
Right, GCs, right? Yeah, have we lined these up with the GC with our governance?
Yes, everything is in line with those.
Also, in the process of where the hearing officers are, and when these kids are with special ed, I've been hearing I have a lot of parents who've been bringing concerns in terms of students being put out from the hearing officers, how involved are we putting our hearing officers in these students who have special issues?
Right, so every year and throughout the year, like when we made changes to this, we also inform the hearing officers. We go through an orientation with them in conjunction with Ms. Swinton, the hearing officers write choices, Dr. Skaggs, we are all updating them of any changes and also answering any questions that they may have when it comes to students with disabilities. And if they come upon a case, sometimes they will check with us to make sure that they're following the law as it is written and the ARs. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it did, but just for the record, I'd like to state, I think that we have spec coordinators, and when we have students that have hearings with IEPs or 504s, I think they should be involved because this is a lot of decisions that are being made now. There's a lot of gray areas in terms of making decisions with our students, and I'm not sure that a hearing officer has the full understanding and the full understanding of the decision that they're making and all the skill sets in terms of understanding and processing if they have not been given information in terms of what that kid, because every kid may have IEP, they may have, could be ADHD or something like that. So therefore, if you don't know that, then sometimes that may make it a little difficult in terms of you understand that kid, understand that decision that you're making to put a kid out of school or put a kid into another program. So not saying that they're not smart, because I'm sure from my saying that some of them have one of them maybe have a law degree. So someone who has a law degree, you just don't get those, or someone who's been over a full police department, you just don't get that type of authority or not know the law. But it's just a wrong upon the educational components that concern me.
Right. So I can add a little bit of clarity there. So when it comes to the hearing officers, we have to keep that process separate, because we have to afford every child due process, right? But before a principal or school administrator can take a student with a disability to a hearing, they must do one thing first, a couple of things. And that includes what we call a manifestation determination review meeting. And that's where your special educators, coordinators are involved in that meeting as well, and they make the recommendations. And then that goes to the hearing officer. So that our hearing officers typically will not hear a case if they don't see that manifestation determination meeting occurring, because that does help them, Mr. Smith, with making the determination. And a lot of times they will say, okay, they uphold they would hold the recommendation of the principal, but they send it back then to the IEP team to determine what the service is and what setting is going to be in. So I just wanted to clear that up, that there is some involvement with the special education coordinators leading up to the hearing and after the hearing as well.
Any more questions? Oh, you're still going.
No, she said.
You're done, right? Okay. All right.
Okay. The next AR is SS39, which is suspension, expulsion, and alternative placement. And I'll just go through it page by page. Robin, if you can make it a little bit larger for me, please.
How's that?
Thank you. All right. Again, in line with all the ARs, we've updated our purpose to make sure we understand what the superintendent's expectation is. And as Ms. McKenzie said, we added a non-discrimination statement that is required by law to ensure that we are not having any discriminatory practices against any groups or individuals. In the introduction, we just added that when we talk about a safe and orderly environment, we just said, instead of the board, we said the Beaufort County School District Board of Education, just to be consistent with the language that we use when we speak to our board. As far as student intervention, in this section, we talked about what school administrators are to do and develop an ongoing process to review and implement behavior interventions, and that the school administrators are to review the data to analyze the students' responses to intervention. So really making that very clear, excuse me, with the interventions. And also here, we are saying that the interventions must be documented and uploaded to our Beaufort County School District Learning Management System. We did not name a specific learning management because, for example, the one that we're currently using, the state is moving to a different learning management system come next school year. So we felt instead of naming a specific learning management system in here, then have to come back to you all each time, we will just leave it as whatever the district chooses to be the learning management system. Excuse me. When we look at investigation of misbehavior, we changed that to misconduct to be aligned with what the state regulations are, using the term misconduct instead of misbehavior. And then also making sure that we're not only following student code of conduct, but also a progressive discipline plan as well. So just adding that to be clear and consistent with our current practice. Under summary of suspension, in here, we wanted it to be very clear that a school principal or assistant principal can determine that students should not have been suspended. So a lot of times they may remove them because of safety issues while they're conducting the investigation. And then based on the investigation, they would have found that the student may not or should not have been suspended. Here, we're stating that no disciplinary infraction shall be applied to the student's record. And if the student has an IEP or 504 plan, then that team must convene and determine the amount of compensatory services, if any, is owed to the student based on educational loss, not just minutes. So if a kid with a disability was removed from the school environment and not receiving services and it's over the 10 days, then when they found that it was not in a violation, we have to determine if we owe them any services because of the educational loss as well. On the suspensions, we just added the language of our progressive discipline plan that we have in place now for several years. We just added that in the language there. Keep going, Robin. And again, it's just making sure we have our progressive discipline plan outlined in the AR. And then we also added that.
What is a progressive discipline plan? Could you please break those things down?
Yeah, the progressive discipline plan is that discipline matrix that is a guide for how many days an administrator can remove or suspend a student based on the infraction. So if it's push, hit, fight, if it's the first offense, it's just a guide to principals. We went over that about a year or so ago. We did some changes back in the August. Also, when we talk about providing notice to the parents, it's important to know that we have to give parents or legal guardian notices in their native language as well. So it's something we're working really hard on as a district, making sure that the communication is in the parents' native language.
Dr. White, excuse me, Mr. Smith has a question.
Sure.
Yes, special ed local agency. You know the progressive discipline plan, but then there was something else in the red in that same paragraph.
Okay, that is saying that a conference needed to be set, and whenever possible, these are the members that should be a part of that. And the local education or the LEA is usually an administrator from the school must participate in that conference. So we're just making sure that whoever is served as the LEA per IDA is identified. And that's consistent with our current practice. And we changed also in this that we should give the parent or legal guardian a call by the end of the work day instead of the school day. And again, to be consistent, instead of just saying as the board designee or by the board, we're saying Board of Education to be consistent across all ARs. In this section, student suspension from school activities, we remove that a student who is absent from school will not be allowed to practice, play, dress out, travel, or attend any meeting of the team or group on the day of the absence. Exceptions such as funerals, field trips, and college visitations must be approved by the principal in advance. We removed that statement and just went on to say, during an out-of-school suspension, a suspended student may not attend school or be on Beaufort County School District property, may not attend the school, any school-related events or activities, whether on or off campus, and may not ride a Beaufort County School District school bus. Any violations can result in the student being charged with trespassing. Missed schoolwork, we made sure that aligned with our current AR regulation, and said it's the responsibility of suspended students to complete all makeup work in accordance with BCSD administrative regulation, and this is now in SS5 student attendance. Expulsion, we added some language in there talking about the hearing officers. So if the administrator recommends a student to be expelled, the parent or legal guardian of the student shall be notified in writing. And this is where I say it must be in their native language of the time and place of the hearing before the student discipline hearing officer. We said we added the word impartial, so they understand that they're not really affiliated with any of the schools and they are to be impartial when making the decisions. And in order to ensure impartiality, the student discipline hearing officers must not have been involved in the investigation or recommendation for expulsion as well. So if they had any knowledge or was involved, but in the way our hearing officers are now, they will not be involved in investigation or recommendation for expulsion. Also, we wanted to be clear that if the parent was to retain legal counsel, a notice of representation must be sent to our general counsel within 72 hours of the hearing, the scheduled hearing, so that we would have time to have representation at the hearing as well. We just fix a little bit of grammar there because we have 2 hearing officers to make it that if they are the discipline hearing officer or officers, uphold the administrator's recommendation for expulsion. And again, we just cleared up the language. Instead of board, we added Board of Education in all the places within this subsection of the AR. We added a new subsection that says, in the event the student discipline hearing officer assigns a student to an alternative program or return the student to their home school in lieu of the administrator's recommendation for expulsion, that decision of the student discipline hearing officer is then final, and they will not be able to appeal that decision. In section D, during the suspension hearing, so instead of hearing, we just wanted to be clear that it was a suspension hearing as well. We, in section E, we cleaned up and talked about remove level 3 and just said an offense for which expulsion or removal is taking place. Then we also went on to say that if they committed an offense and then it is recommended for expulsion, only if the IEP or 5014 determines through a manifestation determination review meeting that the student's conduct was not caused or related to the disability. So just making it clear that it is through that meeting process that determination is made. As far as alternative program assignment goes, we struck through district administrators and where necessary, the impartial student and added impartial student officers to review the school administrator's recommendations for assigning a student to an alternative program in lieu of suspension or expulsion. Again, we added the statement to ensure impartiality the student discipline hearing officer may not include individuals who were involved in the investigation or recommendation for expulsion. We want to make sure that there are no conflicts when we are making decisions. They're making decisions for children. In section B of this part, we also added that when an administrator make a recommendation to the student discipline hearing officer that the student should receive a disciplinary assignment to Right Choices, which is our alternative program for middle and high school, that remote learning, we changed the language from virtual because that is a different meaning with the State Department. Remote learning is used with when we're moving them for disciplinary action as well. So making that very consistent and clear for in the AR. And the same thing here, the discipline hearing officer again, and changing virtual learning to remote learning of adult education is not an option. Here again, using the student superintendent's designee, and that designee's decision shall be final. And again, making sure it states the student discipline hearing officer in section E. And F, we said if a teacher is assaulted or injured by a student, and that student is consequently expelled or assigned to Right Choices as a result of that, if that child returns, they may not return to that teacher's classroom without consent from that teacher. So if it was an option for the child to go back to the classroom, the teacher has to consent to that. In section 15, we went again with the Language Board of Education. In section B, we just changed the section to section 13 instead of 5. We moved that around. And in the next section, petition for readmission or entry, the reason why we wanted to be clear about entry is for students who are new to our district, never been in BCSD and coming from another state or another school district, where readmission is for returning BCSD students. And these are students that may have gone and spent some time away in DJJ in other settings and are expelled, and now they're coming back into school. So we have specific criteria for them. And with that criteria, again, it's going to lead us into the next AR. But for first-time enrollment into BCSD, students who face disciplinary actions such as expulsion from or assignment to alternative setting programs in another school district, or who have had interactions with the criminal justice system that would like to enroll in our schools, must complete the entry/re-entry application form and follow the process that we are going to outline in the new administrative regulation SS40, entry and re-entry procedures. And this process is really aiming to ensure the safety and protection of students and their rights and the overall continuity of education within Beaufort County School District. So it was important that we have an AR to address how that occurs. Any questions about this AR?
Yes, I do have questions. In fact, I missed a question on the last one. I'd like to start with that question. From SS16. You stated that when students are suspended, that they have their if a student is removed from school, that they have the information of their referral upon hand of leaving the building. Is that correct?
Say that again.
And the last in SS16, you stated that once a student if a student have been suspended from school, that when a student leaves the building, that they have the referral in hand, correct? Or they know immediately why their parents are picking them up.
I said that when they're given them the referral, they need to give them the procedural safeguards notice as required by IDEA.
And in terms of break that down, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So on the IDEA, we always have to inform the students and parents of their rights. And those rights are outlined in a special education parent handbook that we require on the IDEA to give the parent at least once a year or anytime a student is removed for disciplinary action or a change of placement. So we're just following the law as it tells us that we have to do all the time. And that handbook can be found online. So we give it to them electronic, or we can give it to them in print. And we have it also in Spanish.
Right, okay, and then also, my point is, my point of the question is also, is my understanding from the presentation earlier, that when a student leaves the school and they're suspended, they have a copy of their referral in hand?
That typically should happen, unless they're investigating and couldn't finish writing the entire referral. But they should be communicating with the parents, and as I mentioned earlier, by the end of that workday, they should be calling the parent and having contact with the parent.
So then my question would be, well, if they're investigating it, then how are they able to render a decision to a student, to tell a student that they cannot come back to school if you have not done a full investigation? And in terms of you telling a student they're suspended and you haven't done a full investigation, how can we do that without them having anything in writing?
Sometimes I'm sorry, someone else said something. Go ahead, Ms. Gordon.
Yes, first of all, we're talking about children with disabilities. Okay, so when you say students, you're including the other general population. So the focus here is the kids with disabilities.
Right.
And as an AP and we have a principal here, we know that the students are given that document. No, they're given that document. Now, what that child does with it, once they leave my office, I can't tell you that John didn't throw it in the trash and he didn't give it to his parent, but I can tell you that we do follow-up calls and we call the parents and let them know that their child has been suspended. Now, what I would do if it's a case that we have to investigate, we put on their pending investigation. And when we talk to the parent, we tell them, pending investigation, John is suspended. That's because the principal can go back and take away that suspension if it proves that John didn't do what we saw. But we have like 30 seconds to make a decision. But that pending investigation gives us the time to investigate, or we can also take that suspension back. Now, the kids with disabilities that we're talking about, they are given, their parents have a copy of the safeguards. That's law. And we're not gonna violate that law. And if that child is being suspended, we let that parent know. We let them know what it entails. We do the MDR, we have a meeting. It's a big thing. So what Mrs. White or Dr. White is presenting is the information that's been taken out or added in to the ARs and I actually do the SPED, that's a SPED AP. So I'm looking at a lot of these changes. This is intense, but I'm telling you, our SPED department, our social workers, our teachers, they do a great job when it comes to this. I've taken SPED kids before hearing. And we have all of their documents in the room. And we respected the parents, and the kids, but once they get in that room with the hearing officer, the stories change and you hear the truth about what they did. So this is impressive. I'm gonna look at it when I get my eyeglasses on tonight. Because it is a lot. It is a lot.
Right.
But if you don't know this law, it can be kind of frustrating. But it's in the best interest of the kids with the disability.
Right. Now, and I understand everything you said, but that's to my point. I understand what you said, but there are still kids that go home or that parents are coming to pick them up, and the parents are asking the administrators that I'm sure of, what do you have? And they say that we're not done or we don't have a referral, but come and pick the kid up. And my point is that that's not what they're telling me today, and what I've seen in this district in the past is not adding up. And so so due to that, I'm saying that if this is how we want to do things, then we need to make sure across the board that if you're sending a kid home, then L of high water, that you're making sure those kids have the like the documentation that, like you said, that is pending. Because the kids need to have something, because their parents who called me and I went up and I followed one, because I told them there was no way they called you and tell you to pick your child up and they didn't give your child something in writing. And the school did not give the parent the stuff in writing. They said that, like you said, they were still trying to finish up some stuff and they were still doing paperwork on it. But
That's okay, that's okay, because if I remember correctly, we have a window of time to give that parent that document. And normally we do, it used to be like 24 hours, I can't remember. But the call is made, once that call is made, that parent is informed that that child is being suspended. So the next day he or she can come to the school and get that document that they need. So a child is not at home without any documentation or call from the school that their child has been suspended. I know kids who would take that document and throw it in the trash, throw it away. Oh, I didn't get anything.
yeah,
See what I'm saying?
yeah,
But it doesn't mean, but parents are being communicated with. They may not like what we're saying to them. And they will, not my child, my child wouldn't do it. And then the next day or that day they come up and they will get that paper. But that's rare. And I know I've done that in rarity where I didn't have all the paperwork done yet. It could be school was getting out at 3:45. This incident happened at 3:00. It takes time to invest. And it's a lot of time to write a referral. Not as easy as you think. Because you gotta have all your pieces together. So I think they're doing a good job with what they have as these things change that they have to do, but I can speak up for administrators, can't speak for all of them. But I would say, and she was, principals hold us to the fire about getting that paper to the parent and that call. Because when they go, if we're gonna suspend them and they're gonna pending a hearing, they're gonna have that paper.
And that communication.
And that communication.
Well, then my question becomes with the legality of things. What's the time frame of having to, and is there any legal ramifications of having something given to a student upon having them exit the building and saying that, hey, your student is suspended, come pick your student up, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and so I mean that in terms of that, what is our legal rights and what's the parents' legal rights, and are we within that?
Again, we're talking about the students with disabilities.
It's the
We're not
same thing,
talking
right? I'm
about-
just saying, the student with disability
This is what
when
we're talking.
right, and when students with disability, they have their procedures are more it's more gray areas because they're a student have IEP, because a student I have an IEP only have about 10 days out of school anyways. So you have to be careful how you, and I had an IEP just FYI, so I'm very versatile. I know all about IEPs and different things about IEP, and I've also been an advocate for students who have had IEP, so I'm very versatile in terms of the IEP policy. And so that's why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking in terms of telling a parent with a kid who have IEP to come pick him up. What is that process in terms of and what's the hour and turnaround time? Do we have to have something in writing so they know exactly why their kid be suspended? Stop, Travis, have her hands up.
Dr. Stratus.
Ms. Gordon, and just to build from your commentary and as well as the information shared from Dr. White, there's a timeliness that Mr. Smith is speaking about legally. And generally it is that either by the end of the workday or within a 24-hour to turn around. And I think Dr. White put that out there. And not only for our students would have a higher level of scrutiny who have an IEP, because this is all being developed to protect our students with an IEP, to assure deeper practice and to bring more awareness to be complying with federal law. And I know Dr. White will we'll bring this forward to our principals and APs, facilitating with Dr. Campbell. But generally, Mr. Smith, it should be end of the workday if possible, but then things happen at the 11th hour, right, at dismissal. So there can be times that that student gets sent home at the end of the day as well, or in this case, as you use an example, at 10:15 in the morning, but that investigation is going on during the day. And best practice is, yes, that administrator should reach back to that family. And I'm sure that that's a practice that Dr. White, and I believe you work with Dr. Skaggs at practices.
Right. And
Where
we're working at,
families-
and in some cases, it's a safety thing too, right?
Mhm.
It's what's going on and how do we keep everybody safe at the time? And then we respond. So we have been working with administrators and making sure of that timeless, because I have received a couple of calls from parents. And so depending on the particular schools, then I would usually address that with the schools and just secure our practices. So once we finish with these ARs, we are going, as Dr. Stratus stated earlier, we are going to be sharing them with the principals and then the APs and doing a deep dive and interpretation and having an understanding of what it means with our principals. Mhm.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, so that leads me to
Sorry.
the final, go ahead.
I haven't done the one you just went over yet.
Okay,
In terms of the 72 hours, I think that was on page 5 of the 72 hours of notification of general counsel. Being that we have general counsel here, well, why would we need 72 hours?
give them enough time. We don't know what's on their agenda and what they're working and what they have scheduled. So it is just professional courtesy to make sure that they can properly prepared and defend the school and the district as well.
Thank you.
And also in the SS39, being expelled, what's the process of after the student has been expelled? What is the appealing process? Is that spelled out in this document right here? SS39?
You're asking me what is the process when a student is expelled?
Yes, ma'am.
They are provided notification that they're expelled and they can re-enter either at the end of the school year or 365 days later. The exception is if it's a student with a disability, then we provide the services to that student. All other students do not get instructional services if they're expelled from the district. And the notification is given by the hearing officer after the hearing and provide that notice in writing to the parent, letting them know what their next steps are and their rights to appeal, and that they shall not return to school for 365 days or at the end of the school year, depending on the infraction.
Okay, so they are giving information that you have the right to appeal a expulsion.
It's usually on the letter that they have, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay.
You sure?
Actually, I have some more, but go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give it back.
You're right. We can move it on. Go ahead. Dr. White.
I don't know now. This is a new one.
Great, thank you.
You're fine. So this is a new AR, never existed. So everything is in red. I am going to start by just saying the purpose of this AR for entry and re-entry for students with disciplinary action. This is, like I said, outline the process for students who have faced disciplinary action. Usually have some kind of either re-entries for students new to our district coming from another district who may have been expelled or had some kind of involvement with the juvenile justice system as well. This process, as I stated, applies to both Beaufort County School District students who wish to re-enter our schools following disciplinary actions, and also for students who are enrolling for the first time into Beaufort County School District and have a prior or pending disciplinary action. We are requiring them to complete an application process that's outlined in the AR 40, SS 40, and then they still have to attend a hearing with our entry and reentry committee. And if it's a student with an IEP or 504 accommodations, they have to be addressed in the support plan. So you had a chance, hopefully, to review the new AR, and I can answer any questions for you about the new AR. But it's just pulling out and making it very clean for how they re-enter our system, because we want it to be a very safe and learning environment for all students involved.
And who's on the reentry who's on this committee? Who's this committee?
The reentry committee comprises of the director, student success, and the executive directors. They're 3 team members. And if it's a student with a disability or Section 504, then the director and or coordinator of special ed will be part of the committee as well.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. White.
You're welcome.
No, you don't.
Thank you very much for answering my questions. Going over this document. All right. The next one is move down. Oh, textbook.
Textbooks, yay, that's you, that's us. Where's the team here? This one we are excited about. Although we just kind of plummeted out a little bit with regulations, but this one does follow along with IS 36 administrative regulation. And just, we have a district textbook coordinator, and the information will come from the state to Ms. Cleveland here at the district office, and she provides that list out to our schools. Content areas, the levels that are being considered for adoption. She also provides with that date, those dates of caravans that go around the state, or different areas where the community can go and look at these materials. The other thing that Ms. Cleveland, our textbook coordinator, provides is a timeline for final selections. So that's very helpful as well. What way we look at this is we now have kind of updated and modernized our process a little bit. And these ladies across the table for me were instrumental in making that happen. We have taken the IS 36E form that we used to have teachers fill out at the school, and they can now fill it out online. So that allows them to sit with that group of peers at their school and review those textbooks. And what we make sure happen is we make sure that those textbooks from all the different vendors make their way to the school for teachers to review. So after all that is done, those forms come back to us here at the district office. And we make sure of a few things. We make sure, first of all, that any textbook that is put into place here in Beaufort County is aligned to our standards and our instruction. We make sure that if there are print and digital copies available, that we provide both of those to our teachers and students. So with that being said, I'm just going to start with secondary programs and tell you what we put in front of our teachers and what decisions they made. So our world history teachers, and those are not our middle school world history, that was not up for adoption. This is our high school, our 9th through 12th grade world history students. And this is advanced placement world history. Those teachers chose the Earth and its peoples. That is the 7th edition. And that is National Geographic Learning. Cengage is the publisher there. And that's a really good fit. I hate to say that I'm really excited that was their selection. I couldn't sway them, obviously, but that goes along with what started at our middle school level. Continuing with secondary, we have some chemistry that came open by the state. We're excited about this. Chemistry 1 teachers, that's our first level of chemistry in our high schools. Selected Inspire Science, chemistry, and that was by McGraw-Hill. Our chemistry honors teachers selected an introductory to chemistry, which is also by McGraw-Hill. And our chemistry advanced placement teachers selected chemistry by National Geographic Learning Cengage. So that's two different publishers there, but great selections that our teachers made. And I have one more before I turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Gilbert. And that is physics. And we were really excited about this one. Physics books are definitely a need. So we have advanced placement physics, and that was a college physics book, Explore and Apply AP edition. And that is the second edition of that text. And that's by Savas Learning Company. And then Physics 1, that introductory course, is Inspire Science Physics by McGraw-Hill. So I'm really excited about those selections our teachers made. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Gilbert.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Smith, and board members, we had several titles that were adopted by the state specific to career and technical education. This crossed over 7 different career and tech ed pathways. I have for your review 13 high school CT courses and 1 middle school course. And of those, our teachers reviewed and selected 13 titles. The reason the number doesn't match the number of courses because you'll see in a minute for our welding levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, they selected the same textbook because it covers their different standards. So for our business related, we have the advanced personal finance, and you see 2 selections there from our teachers. The first one is the physical printed book that they selected by BE Publishing. It's called Personal Finance Literacy. And then we have the online resource that we're excited about because our Educational Foundation of Excellence, they provided a grant this current year for our teachers to be able to thoroughly review that as well. And so they have now selected that on the state adoption list, which will be good because that helps with funding for next year. So the teachers also selected that as their online supplemental resource called Foundations in Personal Finance by Lamco, which is Ramsey Education Solutions. For our accounting courses, they selected Century 21 Accounting. They use a general ledger and an advanced ledger. So that will be for accounting 1 and 2. And then for our marketing related, it's called Sports Entertainment Marketing. The course, they selected the title Sports Entertainment Marketing. It's also by Nat Geo Cengage. Then for an IT related course and pathway, for fundamentals of web page design, the teachers reviewed and selected. Again, we have the printed copy from Nat Geo Cengage called Responsive Web Design with HTML. And then for their online resource to supplement, it's called Code HS. I'm excited about that one because we've been using this for about 5 years now. The teachers really like it because it has a simulated online. They can do a web page without impacting our networks. But now that the state will be funding it for next year, that will help offset some costs. So those are the 2, the printed copy for one textbook and then the online supplement for the other. And then just a few more. In our culinary pathway, the Introduction to Culinary course came up for adoption, and so they selected the Culinary Professional by Goodhart Wilcox for our 3 schools there. And then for sports and nutrition, under our foods and nutrition pathway, they selected Nutrition and Wellness for Life by Goodhart Wilcox there. And then to wrap up, the next one is Here we go. Under our health sciences pathway, we have sports medicine 1 and sports medicine 2. Those are the courses. So our teachers put forth for their selection that was state adopted, Introduction to Sports Medicine and Athletic Training. Again, that's by Cengage. And then they chose for sports medicine 2, Fundamentals of Athletic Training, and it's by a company called Human Kinetics. And then lastly, our welding teachers, for all 4 of their courses, welding 1, 2, 3, and 4, they selected a textbook from Cengage called Welding Principles and Applications. So I appreciate the teachers' work in reviewing these. And then on the last one for the middle school, which this is a course I really like. It's on the next slide. It's called Introduction to Careers. And so for their review, they selected Career Explorations. It's a book by BE Publishing, and it has highlights from all 16 of the career clusters that our middle schoolers can explore.
So I've been before you to present for the textbook adoption for ELA kindergarten through 12th grade. But in addition to the ELA adoption for kindergarten through 2nd grade, there were a couple more choices that our teachers were able to make. So the first one for English language arts is the handwriting choice. This is the selection for kindergarten through 5th grade, but the State Department of Education is funding it 2nd and 3rd grade, which is aligned to when is currently in our standards. So our educators selected out of 2 choices, Zaner Blosser, and with 93% of the votes. It aligns with the handwriting that's in the textbook that was selected for the K-5 teachers with HMH also. So there's an alignment. Yes.
In handwriting, is cursive included?
Yes, ma'am. 2nd grade will focus on manuscript, and then it transitions to cursive. And then 3rd grade is all cursive.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. In addition, our English language arts advanced placement teachers, so the AP courses in high school, we have English language and composition AP course and English literature and composition course. The educators selected the publisher Bedford, Freeman, and Worth. And so there's 2 titles that align to the 2 different courses. So for language and composition, the textbook they selected was the language of composition. And then for English literature and composition, they selected literature and composition. So there was 3 approved options for AP English, and Bedford, Freeman, and Worth was selected by our educators.
Question, when are these textbooks scheduled to arrive?
That's, I hope June, for ELA, the pre-order window opens April the 8th. And so at that time, schools can submit what their pre-order choices are. That allows the state to get time to prepare. But I spoke with Mrs. Cleveland today, and we anticipate if everything sticks to timeline and everything goes well at the State Department and with their delivery, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, then we are hoping that our schools start to receive the selections in June.
And of course, the ones brought forward today, Mrs. Gordon, we're asking that the committee take them forward to the full board for approval. Once we receive that, then we'll be able to begin to, we have to send it forward to the state and let them review our selections, and then we'll be open for ordering. We're excited.
And I gave Mr. Smith the motion. He's ready to make a motion when you call for it.
I'm calling. Motion.
At this time, Madam Chair, thank you for that. I move that the Beaufort County Academic Committee recommend presentation of the following textbook adoption to the April 2nd, 2024 full board during committee update segment of the BOE meeting. Secondly, program, career, and technical education, writing and composition.
Any discussion? Any discussion, Dr. Stratus?
Thank you.
Just to share, Ms. Gordon, with your question regarding receipt of materials, we did bring forward in a prior AR that we give 30 days for the orders to be put in. If not, it AR pushed through at the district level, so we could help facilitate to ensure that our schools receive materials in a timely manner.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your support.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay. No, appreciate you. Okay. Yes.
I'll just call for the vote.
Yeah, I told them, I voted, I said yes.
Okay, that's fine.
And then any questions? Et cetera?
Now, I voted yes.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
We appreciate your support.
Now, I appreciate all that we do.
You got the magic team with you.
I know, I'm excited. They do great, do you ladies need to find any break? Or we can find any break and we can vote?
Then we'll need a motion to go into executive session
Oh, yes.
after the break. We need a motion to go into executive session. And it's on the agenda for the purpose of, if you could just read that. After,
Have to read it now or?
no, are you going to an executive session now? Or are you taking your 5
We
minute
could take
break?
a 5 minute break. Give them
So you take a 5 minute break and then we come back. You can recap the reason why we're going to executive session. Okay.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you.
Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robin,
Good luck with the 18th.
Robin, I'm gonna mute you guys until you guys come back from your break.
Stratus and, who else?
Yes, ma'am.
I just take We need a motion to go.
Need a motion to,
Go into executive session.
something saying.
All being back, call me back on, or? Okay.
That we can go.
Oh,
into
yes, ma'am.
executive session.
At this time, Madam Chair, I'm action that I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss of the Health Advisory Committee applicant in pursuant to the South Carolina codes and section 30-4-70 A quotation 1 quotations.
A secondary motion? That motion?